Hello, and welcome back to the Utah Tech Leads Leadership Series. Today, we are joined by Dan Caffee. How are you doing, Dan?
Doing great. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your company.
I'm a dad and a tech entrepreneur, and I've been building companies in Utah for longer than I want to say, over 20 years. And my company is Vose. It's a B2B sales tool, and we make tools for field sales reps. It's a great company. We put it together in July of last year, and doing some really fun things. It's on the cutting edge with AI, and have a great team. Really fun.
Awesome. So, you've been in the tech scene for a little bit. Tell us what are some of the leadership qualities that either you've developed yourself or that you've seen that are really inspirational to you?
Honestly, I think some of the best leaders and the best leadership qualities that I've seen have to do with how you treat your people. So, I think the main asset in a tech company, you don't have a lot of heavy equipment. There's not a lot of hard assets. The real asset is the people, and the most effective leaders are the ones who really care about their teams, and they have a real focus on making their teams successful, making their people successful, and helping them succeed. That's the biggest one for me.
Have you seen the good or bad side of that over the course of your career?
Yeah, I mean, look, it can go too far, and you can end up with entitlement problems or whatever. But usually, I think people invest a lot of time in their careers. It's a huge part of their lives, and they take it seriously, and they want to know that you take it seriously. If you want people to follow you, you got to inspire them and let them know that you actually care about their success.
How do you keep up with that? How do you keep up with the personal lives of the people that you have on your teams, as well as kind of meshing that together with the updates that tech is constantly going through as well?
Yeah, I mean, it takes a lot of effort, and you have to put time and effort and resources into it. So the culture of a company, and how, are you doing activities? Are you doing surveys? Are you allowing them to be great? The way I look at it is basically, look, build a company with a great culture, bring great people into it, and give them the resources and the encouragement to do great things, and always be evaluating and see if you're on track or off track, and then make adjustments.
Absolutely. So, have you ever had a mentor in the community? You don't have to
Oh
name.
man.
You do not have to name anyone. I'm just kind of curious about how,
Yeah.
if you have, how those relationships kind of worked out over the course of your career.
Yeah, so when I first started building companies here, there wasn't much of a tech scene, and so there weren't as many examples of how to do this in our community. And so the mentors that we did have were so important. And my partner and I had a mentor early on who was invaluable. He was about 10 years older than us and about 10 years further along in his career. And I like to say that the advice that he shared with us was like cheat codes. Instead of having to learn everything and try and figure it out like you're the first person who's ever done it, he was able to say, listen, I've been through this. I've seen this already. Here's some advice. And it would just save us so much time and heartache. Um, and, and I think it also gave us a lot of encouragement, right? The feeling that, like, no, you'll get through this. It's tough, but I've been through this and I've seen this before. That's normal. You're not failing. This is how it goes. And sometimes as an entrepreneur, it can be really lonely. And I think having a mentor who's been through it is, it's one of the most important things that you can do.
Have you had those conversations with other people? Like, have you kind of passed the torch and been the one to say, you know what, it happens, or this happens and it's okay, and or hey, I know how to fix that. Let me tell you about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think now that we have a good community here, and we have a thriving tech community, I I feel like there's a real responsibility to pay it forward, and I feel it a lot. So since I've been around and I've seen so much and been through it, I love helping other entrepreneurs and working with them and answering their questions, and helping to pass along some of the cheat codes that I've learned, in my experience and from my mentors. And for me, there's nothing more satisfying um, than being able to help, someone who's going through something, help them to see how to get through it, or just help them by being there and talking through it with them. Sometimes as an entrepreneur, it's not even advice. You just need someone to talk to. And it's interesting because it's hard for people who aren't in the space sometimes, who haven't been in that position, to even understand what you're talking about. And so if you're in a position where you can be supportive and helpful, I think you kind of have a responsibility to do that.
Kind of giving back to the community, as it were.
Yeah. Yep.
So you mentioned you're a dad. So my next question is the age-old question of how in the world do you balance your professional and personal life?
That's a good question, and it's really tough, and I think it's really personal for every entrepreneur. At different stages of my career, I have not done a great job of it. At other stages, I've done a really good job of it. So I wouldn't say that I'm the best at it. I tend to probably go more extreme on one end or the other, depending on the time of year, or the position, or the stage of life. But I think there are a couple things that I do, which is, if you plan to have that balance, and if you just expect that it's going to naturally happen and that it's easy, it really isn't. It takes some deliberate effort. And so for me, I like to make sure that I have activities planned. I have something to do that evening after work. So you have to go home. You can't stay there all night. You need to go home. You need to go to this soccer game, or you have a date night, or you have something that is just there. Because if you expect that it's just going to naturally, right? You're an entrepreneur and building in the tech community, there's always more to do. There isn't a time where like, oh, it's all finished now. That doesn't happen. So you have to have, in my experience, sort of specific things planned to help pull you back into reality. And I think you've got to make some boundaries for yourself. So you really say, listen, whatever it is, I'm not going to miss, or I'll go to at least half of the soccer games, or I need to go to this performance, and I've made that commitment, and then practicing sticking to it.
Absolutely. I totally understand that. So what would you consider are your biggest accomplishments?
There's all different ways of measuring that, and you can measure it in success of a company or in awards. I would say that in business, some of the ones I'm most proud of, I would say, when my companies have won best companies to work for in the state. There's a few reasons for that, but for me, it's a really important one. Those kind of awards are usually voted for by the employees. And so that means a lot. And also that represents some of the values that are important to me, which is building an environment that's supportive and fun, that people really enjoy. And that's probably more important than some of the maybe more prestigious awards, just because it shows that it aligns with my values and the things that are important to me.
Yeah, definitely those kind of grassroots efforts from the bottom up rather than the top down, I think can be really, really important, especially as you're growing. It's just absolutely necessary. So now comes the absolutely self-serving question. Why did you decide to support UTL?
So I've been building tech companies here since before there really was a thriving tech community. And it's been so exciting to watch the community and see what it looks like now. As you drive down the I-15, and it's just a thriving community. And what I noticed was there are some things that would happen in the news and the way that, with the legislature, that I think don't really represent Utah very positively, and really don't represent some of the values of the tech community, and they can send the wrong impression. And I want to be able to be proud of saying that I'm in the tech community in Utah, and have that mean something really positive, and not have them think of some controversial or terrible thing that's existed in the legislature. And I also think that there's something really important about getting involved. I didn't know anything about state politics or local politics, and frankly, No offense, I didn't care about it. It really just was something I never thought of.
I think it's pretty
And by
normal.
being involved,
That's a really normal way of thinking about things. Don't worry, there's no offense taken.
yeah, I didn't understand it really, and I didn't care. And by being involved with UTL, I've learned an enormous amount. And what I've seen is the importance of getting involved and making our voices heard and our values represented in the legislature. And that it's more important and actually a little bit easier than I expected. It's not some crazy impossible thing. You know, our community represents a really important part of the state economy and the culture of the state, and I think a really good part as well. So I think our voices should be heard, and I've really enjoyed getting involved and engaging with UTL and with the political scene.
Well, we've loved having you and we love having your leadership in our group, and we appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Liz.